Welcome back, Brick fans, to another episode of Building Bar 2. I'm Brick Mad Sam, and on today's episode we are going to be completing the rest of the spaceport tower here and also working away on some of the flooring to the side of it. So basically I'm just building up the tower here above this kind of level that I've already worked on the last couple of weeks. Essentially with this tower, I want to try and keep it quite smooth, but I did want to add a little bit of sort of details, which I like to do across all of the buildings for Bar 2. And here what I've tried to do is integrate some ingots on the outsides and also actually work it into part of the building. Now you also see in the middle of the build I have created a kind of damaged section here with the dark bluish grey. Let's just give a little bit of, again, just that sort of in-world feel. On top of that, I did have to do a lot of work to sort of obviously complete the end of this and sort of build in the backside of it. Even though it's not really going to be visible to most people in the build, I did want to sort of build it up so that I have a full circular sort of piece so that I can kind of come around with it with cameras and look at it from any sort of angle. Now what I did decide to do is really trim down on the amount of details on the back. So you will see as I'm building that I have cut down by just putting in large panels or large just brick surfaces, and that really just is to fill out that space and to essentially just finish off the structure of the build. So looking at the build here, I think I've got a nice blend of details and also a nice amount of smoothness in there. There's some cool little bits of greebling, which will have some additional pieces added to it, some string and things as well, and a few lights down the bottom as well that will shine up the tower. I'm also planning on feeding some flex tube through these little grey clips down the bottom here, just to really improve the integrity of the overall sort of circular shape. That will really help by kind of adding a continuous kind of curved section down here. Also, I've added in this quite kind of iconic strip of this yellowish orange in there, which is kind of a bit of a feature of the tower. And then because I need to step the tower outwards a little bit towards the top, I decided to use some of these slopes. Now I have actually run out of pieces, and I do this a fair bit, but I've found the correct pieces that I need, just in a slightly different color that I'm going to put towards the back. And then I will actually eventually swap these out for an additional tan piece so that it does work at the back there. But for now, I think this will be enough for me to continue the tower upward and create a solid base for the roof to go on top of. So here again, you'll see I'm just building up quite simply towards the back. It is literally just bricks basically, and then at the front I'm putting a little bit more detail and dropping in some more of those ingots and just breaking it up a little bit more. Alright, so jumping over to the roof build now. Throughout Bar 2, I have had a lot of difficulty trying to figure out how to build roofs, just mainly because they are big rotundas and they often kind of require some sort of dome structure, which usually means a bunch of wedge plates, some ball and socket joints, things like that for some of the different buildings, and no one building is the same size, so that means that the dome structures often need to change. Now with this one, I did get a little bit lucky in that Lego actually provides these sort of large circular grey pieces that were big enough with a couple of additional slopes to fill it out in the center, which I'm adding in now, and those sort of gave me just enough to be able to put it on top and fit over this for the perfect size that I needed. Continuing on now, I'm going to start building a little base for this, which needs to be built up at least 3 high with a whole bunch of tiles over the top because of the circular structure. I can't obviously have a whole bunch of studs because those studs will actually get in the way, and so I've just put a few very strategically placed jumper plates so that I can actually lock the tower into place, which you'll see here. Now you will notice that I have left a whole bunch of gaps here, and that is something that I will be filling in later, but I did just want to get it onto this base and see how the building actually fit on there, just to make sure that none of the additional studs that I add in for texture purposes conflict with actually getting the tower locked into place. So this is actually working pretty well now, and I can actually go back in and fill in some of these places. And this is a technique that I've done throughout Bar 2 just to build up a whole bunch of different textures. I never like to just tile something, even if it is like a smooth surface. I still like to add kind of at least little bits of difference, either some jumper plates or some just straight up plates, or even some of these sort of little curved tiles to just feel like the floor has been chipped away a little bit. So this is the final build of the tower, and now I think it is time to move it over and see how it fits into the build. Now, this is always a nerve-wracking process for me to move something like this over and actually stick it into the build. Firstly, because it actually needs to sort of go in the right spot and make sure it fits with everything else that's in the scene. And also, of course, there is a chance of me being a klutz and dropping it and completely shattering the build. Thankfully though, this worked out okay, and it's time to jump over to the flooring. Now I am using a mixture of snot flooring, which is the first large panel that you just saw go in, and also this kind of stuck down tiles. Now that's for a few different reasons, mainly because I did want something that was solid and stuck down to the base plates to hold the tower and some of the other pieces. And then also I wanted the cool kind of textural feeling of the snot work. So this was kind of an interesting technique. It did take a little bit of fiddling around to make sure that kind of I get a nice interlock and it isn't sort of an obvious change between tiles and snot bricks, but I do think it becomes a really effective looking technique that I will be using across a lot more of the build. Now over underneath the Falcon, there is kind of a bit of a circular landing pad that I need to create. So I have built these kind of, I guess they're like a triangular base that I'm going to be putting in there. Now this is just a bit of a prototype to see the general position of where these are all going to be. And then I will have to transition these with some large slopes to meet up with the tiles to the left of where the tower is. So this basically is just a little layout just to give me a bit of an idea of where this would be, and I think that it's going to look pretty effective when I've got the kind of central landing pad here, and then with the Falcon sort of sitting on top of that. So that pretty much wraps up today's episode and all of the updates. We made some really good progress with the floor and also with that main tower for the spaceport, of course. And we will be continuing on with finishing off the floor next week and just getting in and finishing off some of the back walling for the spaceport before we start on some of the spires. So stay tuned for that, Brick fans, and if you enjoyed today's video, please hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. And until next time, enjoy your building and may the bricks be with you.